Welcome back, YouTube. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about signals, in particular to Dogecoin, and taking a look at the market overall, just to kind of give you an idea of what happens during a bull run cycle and how sometimes these sell signals can not play out, right? As we know that all signals are not 100%. There's no such thing as a guaranteed sell signal. Otherwise, that would be the only signal that we would all be trading or investing with, because it would be foolproof, right? Um, Obviously, things like the macro events, liquidity issues, all that kind of thing, really just plays into the flow of the coin and really the money and the amount of money that's flowing into the market and the different coins. But we're going to take a look here at a couple of examples from this current trend, and then we're going to go back to 2016 and look at the trend. And the reason I'm doing that is because those two, 2016 and the current trend that we are in now, are what I would consider organic runs, right? 2021 was like the anomaly. So we can get some references as far as for where like pools of liquidity will be, supply and demand zones and stuff like that. We can kind of overlap that. But this run is going to be more similar to the run that we've seen in 2016, I believe, until we get some of the news like the X payments and futures and stuff like that, and then we can kind of have like some meme like God candles can certainly play a factor in that. But outside of those, it's not going to be as consistent as 2021 with like the Elon tweets and the explosion of retailers coming into the market. We are growing month over month, absolutely, but I want to compare these two just to kind of give you an idea of what to expect and what we're seeing now. So the biggest thing, and I noticed this the other day, but I didn't comment on it because I know the biggest thing that was going to happen is it was going to start trending eventually anyway, which is whether or not this is a head and shoulder pattern. Is this bracing us for a dip down? And the biggest thing that you're going to want to say is, okay, well, what about these EMAs here that looks like they're about to cross, right? The yellow line is the 14. The orange line I have here is the 72, right? So a cross of a shorter term EMA crossing a longer term EMA is the technical term is will be known as like a death cross, especially with as wide as a gap as 14 and 72. So you would say that would mean that there is a sell-off coming, and then you look at the chart and you'd say, well, with that being said, where would the pool of liquidity be? Would this be at 12 cents, or is it going back down here to 8? And I want to point out that during the bull run, now if we were still in bear run, if we were prior to having like a year out from having and haven't gotten any of the signals and stuff that we have now, then yeah, that could certainly mean that we're going to have that push down. But overall, where you are in the cycle means a lot, right? And I'm going to prove that here, and then we're going to take a look back at history to kind of give you an idea. And if you watched the video from yesterday, before I get into the technicalities, one of the things I talked about was that during the market, there were several times, even if you look at Bitcoin, and we can take a look at that as well, there were several times where it looked like there was a top, or that the asset was going to sell off and going to go lower. And typically after that, that is when the all-time highs, all that kind of stuff came in. It's never a smooth, like it's never an ascending angle or anything like that, where you just kind of get in and it's just a smooth ride to the top. That has never happened in like the 10 plus years Dogecoin has been here. Same thing for Bitcoin. That has not happened. It's always these pump fakes, fake outs, whatever you want to call it, false flags, false signals, all that kind of good stuff. That kind of gives you an idea of where you need to be in the market. But obviously, if you're trading with the motion or investing with the motion, it can potentially cause you to jump early. So let's take a look here at more recent history, right? And you'll see that let's just say that we do get the 14 and the 72 cross. Where has this happened before recently? And this happened in January. We have the 14 crossing the 72. And what happened as far as for our price action, all right? Even before the cross, we had obviously the initial dip that get us there in the first place. But what happened after the 14 and the 72? We trended sideways. We didn't even go these three lines here, like the 7 to this range here, the 521. These are our major lines of liquidity. We never revisited them after that 14 and 72 day cross. We simply trended sideways. And the unique thing is, because of the timing of the market and the expansion here, and this is what I meant by, because Bitcoin was rallying around that time. We were getting close to having the amount of coins, the amount of wallets that were being opened in January and February were astronomical for Dogecoin. The coin did not dip down. It simply trended sideways. So even here, you kind of say that we even had a retest and went above the 72-day here for price action. It went almost to 9 cents, and then we consolidated back and we continue to trend sideways. The funny thing is, even though we crossed it and it had virtually no effect, when the signal inverted and we had the 14-day cross to 72, that was the biggest buy signal that we've had in the history of the bull runs for Doge. So this here was an unprecedented run, right? I counted the candles here. I forget how many, but I want to say it was like 9 days straight where we had 9 green days straight where Dogecoin closed higher for 9 days straight. Wasn't done in 2021 and wasn't done in 2016, right? So for the first time in history, that 14 crossing the 72 back, even though it was ignored on the way down, that crossing the number back generated the strongest buy signal that we've had. Even during peak bull run in 2021, we did not get 9 days straight of green candles, right? So what does this mean when you interpret that? Well, the biggest thing is that you have to kind of consider where we are in the cycle. And I think that where, obviously, if you're looking at Bitcoin and the catalyst and stuff like that, you can kind of say, okay, well, does this leave room for us to go down? Is it potentially for us to do like a liquidity grab before there is a higher retest? And we're doing that technically now, right? So normally what happens is you have the halving sell off, and then there's that liquidity grab, and you'll have the assets dip. Whenever Bitcoin, typically it goes percentage wise, like around like 58,000. And then you have that gradual ascend and you start trending higher and higher and higher. And then you get to that parabolic movement and then FOMO, and then you top out and then you start the descent, right? Historically, what happens is there is a point where we consolidate and we grab the liquidity prior to the overall run, right? And so we retested the 22, right, which was setting us up for like that 25 to 30 zone, because obviously the higher we would have charted, the better, because that determines where you grab liquidity from. So even though we didn't get to the 25 to 30 range, you have to understand that for where we are in the cycle, we're doing exceptionally well. This is what I meant with my video yesterday. We went to the 22 and we're consolidating at the 15. Even now, if you take a look back over history, technically we should be at around 8 cents right now. We should be just starting to consider moving after the halving, which is this is why I say count this as a blessing. So if you're looking at the overall coin and the price action, you're going to say, okay, well, what does this mean for Doge? Is this unlikely that we're going to go back down, or does this typically happen? And we're going to take a look here on the chart if this ever loads up. And this is going to give you an idea of typically what happens before we start to ascend, because the biggest thing is, like I mentioned a couple of videos ago, is going to be the fact that the bull run is 18 months. And I know we typically try and time short-term price action whenever it's like being on a roller coaster. Whenever there's a dip, everybody's gasping, is this it? Is this it? Is this it? And ironically, even in the bull, when things start to go the other way and we get a big run, like right now, if we got a run from 15 cents to 50 cents, everybody would be like, is this it? Is this it? Is this it? Like, it happens no matter what happens on the price action, that there's always going to be that interpretation of panic, whether it's too low or too high. The price will never be just right. So let's go back to 2016, right? And I want to point this out. We're going to ignore the 2021 for right now, right? Let's go back here. 18, 16, right? Things got good in 17, right? So, but 16, you'll see that, there we go. Right. So we have the 16 halving around like March or something. We're not going to go back that far because it's pretty much a flat line. We got most of the momentum came in 2017, similar to what happened in 2020, right? Because remember, when was our explosive year? It was 2021, right? So because even now we had the ascension where things were gradually building in 2016. You had the ascension that things were gradually building in 2020. But when was the blow off top? It was the year after. That's why I say 18 months is typically the time frame, because people try and time it to say, okay, well, it's going to be 4 months after the halving, 3 months after the halving. And historically, that's just simply not true. But again, this time could be different. We did run early. There's some factors out there. For those of you who follow the channel, we've talked about it. That potential is there, but right now we're going with what we know and versus assumptions. And what we know is that cycle typically is 18 months. So we had the run here, and you would have said, okay, well, we had this big pump up here in 2017, and you'd say, okay, we are now doing, because at the bottom of 2016, we're doing like 2 million in daily volume. Right now, the daily volume 25.26 million. Obviously, we're up. Everything's green. You'd say, and then we have this sell off here, right? And then at this point, the volume has been cut in half. We're down by over 50%. You'd say, okay, well, that was it. That was the run. That it's over now. We're going back into hibernation. This is bear market territory again. It's over. And typically that would be your sell signal. But if you just zoom out right here, same year, this is January of 2018. If you just zoom out right here, that mountain that we were on just a second ago now looks like a hill, because there is a bigger mountain here, right? And we're talking about quadrupling tripling the peak of this mountain here. We're around 20 something million. This is around 62 million, right? So more than tripling the volume that we were having here. And that's the biggest thing that you kind of want to have for those of you who are investing in the coin. Obviously, your sell points, your target prices are all going to be on your on an individual basis. So obviously that's up to you, but it's something you want to consider here when you're looking at trends, that you're going to get times where things look like it's over, and that's the conclusion of the run. Now, overall, what you're going to look for is make sure that you're charting to see what Bitcoin is doing, seeing what the investors are doing behind the scenes. Are they going long? Are they going short? Are longs dominating? Are shorts dominating? And same thing as far as with Bitcoin, where a lot of the liquidity is coming into the market. These are all going to be things that you should consider prior to trying to call a top for Doge, because typically that's what when you're doing stuff like that, you're making those decisions, or basically you're calling a top for it. So before you start to do those things and start calling a top, make sure there's some data to kind of evaluate what you're saying besides the price going down, because this is crypto. It's not typically like a stock. We can have that extreme volatility, especially when there is a lot of volume coming into the market. You'll see these these positions come in, and people start to take profit, and they'll re-enter, right? You'll see swaps. For those of you that follow my channel, when we look at longs versus shorts, we see swaps all the time. They take profit and they come right back in with another long position. So the biggest thing that you're going to want to look at here, if you're looking at investing, if you want to kind of compare it to what was going on here with the charts, I'm going to pull up here what we're looking at with the long versus short ratios. Is the 5 minute, the 30 minute, the 1 hour, 4 hour, and 1 day are all being dominated, right? So what we're looking at is the opportunity here to see, okay, if you're looking at the 5 minute, you're going to say the 74.25, the 30 minute, the 74.25, the 1 hour, 74.25, the 4 hour, 75.24, and the 1 day, 76.23. So absolutely dominating. So what that means is, if you're looking at an asset and you say, okay, well, how come, if you're looking at the liquidations and you say, how come the longs are dominating liquidations here and the shorts are not coming in? That's because that's a strategy that you can play. So the same thing with shorts, like if they hate the coin and they say that they believe the asset is overvalued and they believe it's going to come down, they can short the asset goes up, which technically is counting against them. They come out of that short position and then re-enter at a higher number. So that way, if it does come back down, they're going to make more money, even though they're still bearish on the actual coin. The long is going to be the opposite of that. If they believe the asset is undervalued, they will come in at a number. And if the asset goes against them, which means that it's going down, they will come out of that position and then re-enter at a lower number. It's still in their long position because they believe that the asset is even more undervalued at that point, that there's greater room for profit. So those liquidations, those swaps are not indicative of price action. What is indicative of the tone of the market is going to be the long short ratio, because what we're seeing here is a 75 to 25 long versus short ratio, or what you can call that is a 3-to-1 vote that the asset is undervalued and it is in fact going to go higher at some point. So that is where the tone of the market is. So you can kind of compare that to what you're seeing with price action, and then that will give you an idea of, you know, whether or not the underlying information, the underlying bearishness, bullishness of the 1.2 billion that's sitting in open interest and stuff like that is aligning with what you're seeing on the charts. Because sometimes you can get these signals and they don't necessarily mean there's going to be a sell-off. So you have to kind of continue to evaluate the market and where you are in the cycle. Because if you're looking at RSI, and even with coins here, like a lot of times people use RSI and stuff like that. Like if you're in a bull run, especially when you're getting God candles, RSI is going to be off the chart, and RSI is going to be like sell, 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 and the asset continues to go up for weeks, right? So in crypto, RSI can certainly be overbought for quite some time, right? It's not as, I won't say it's not as relevant as it is when you're charting a stock. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're considering your positions here, because sometimes you can get these signals and it may not necessarily mean what they would in a bear market. You just have to kind of consider the time. So hope you found value in this video. Please help the channel get to 100,000 subscribers before Bitcoin gets to $100,000. That's a goal of mine. If you can help with that, I'll greatly appreciate it. If you found value, please leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys in the next video.